What's up in War Eagle War Report family? You got Ike Jones. We're back with another morning drop. Today, it is wall-to-wall questions from you. So drop those right here in the chat. We got some already going from Twitter. So let's see what you all want to talk about this here edition of the morning drop. Y'all know how we do War Report style. Let's drop it on them.
You are now listening to the War Report. Drop.
Morning drop right here Friday. It is July the 7th. My guy B Will in here, Ike Jones. We are doing fam. I had fan question on Twitter and it didn't feel right. Didn't feel right to call you all fans. Fam question Friday, man. So questions from the family here today. We're gonna have a family discussion. Just forewarning, I will be ignoring all of the obvious trolls of questions that were asked. So if it's a question where, yes, Stuart Donald, I'm looking at you. If it was a question like that, I'm not going to read that question. I'm not going to answer that question. It's okay. We might answer it on Twitter or something like that, but we'll leave all that to Twitter. If you put something in the chat that is of the same ilk, I'll be ignoring that as well. Not because I don't love you, but because it just, hey, we're not doing that. We limited on the morning drops, man. We got to get to it and get up out of here. You know what I'm talking about? But anyway, B Will, you feeling all right today, man?
Feeling all right, a little under the weather. So I'm gonna sound like Kermit the Frog a little bit, you know, kids, daycare, same old story.
Yeah, man, I feel you, man. All right, so let's get straight to it, man. We had quite a few questions submitted on Twitter. You can submit your questions right here in the chat, and we'll try to get to those as well. But we will do Twitter questions first. If you don't know, this is the Rogue Shop morning drop. And we will be getting into some questions from you on Twitter. Let's start with the one who I feel like got their question in first. For whatever reason, these questions are not in any order on Twitter, not like in the order in which they came in or whatever. So I'm trying to decipher all this. But the one that feels like it came in first is from Jeremy tweeting at Southern FB, which I assume stands for football, 1993, who says, who will be the wide receiver that gets close to 1,000 yards or gets to 1,000 yards this season? Who's going to be the big catch receiver for Auburn this year? Most yards on the season. Who do you feeling like, B Will?
You know what? Because
we're answering all these questions kind of off the cuff. We haven't gone and researching it and stuff. So you guys give us some patience here this morning. Go for it.
Yeah, for sure. So I saw Shorter's numbers at North Texas. Deep threat, big catches. He had the highest or one of the highest catch averages in the country last year. But I think we've got targets all over the field, man. We've got a lot of big dudes. Camden Brown. We got Hollywood on the team. We've got Shorter, who is a really big deep threat. It's too many dudes for one guy to get 1,000. Honestly, I think that's what is going to be going on here. If we expect the quarterback position to throw for 2,500 to 3,000 yards, I say it's probably going to be split up between 3 or 4 targets, 3 of those being receivers. Also, we got the tight end. The running back's going to get some passes caught as well. I think it gets spread all over the place, and we probably won't have a receiver approach 900. But if we do, we're going to win 9 games. Like if we get somebody who is, once you get past like 500-600 yards, then that means this dude is, I can count on him to get this catch at this moment. It's not just, oh, I schemed you open, you were open. Once you get north of 800, like that's no, he's the dude. Like the offense may have not presented every opportunity for you to go like high flying 1,500 yard season or 1,000 yard season, but north of really, I'd say 750. That means your offense was doing something really well. This dude was not only able to get schemed open, he was able to get himself open, and the quarterback knows it. If we get that guy, we're winning over 8 games. 8 is kind of like my mark in my head. I think we are due for an 8-win season. If we get somebody going 900, north of 8 wins. We're talking 9 or 10 for sure.
Yeah, so I think it's going to be one of the slot guys. I'm going to go VAR or Fair here on, because I just feel like we're going to get a lot of those option or early routes where you're just going to turn and fire it out to the outside, and they're going to expect guys to get yards after the catch. I'm more confident that we're going to have a receiver with a bunch of receptions than I am with 1,000-yard receiver. To your point, I think it's going to be spread out a lot, but I do think that we have, a high receptions guy. So look out single season receptions record this season.
You're saying Ryan Davis is going down in that department.
Maybe. I think he's going to be in danger of that this year, but I think that's a little more likely than 1,000-yard receiver, because I do, to your point, think that it's going to be spread out quite a bit this year.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, next up here from Twitter, it looks as if it's Gracie Skywalker tweeting from Gracie Sky W96434, who says, I believe Auburn will land Riddick, Thompson, and Coleman, and I'm not changing my mind. Still, after signing day, I believe we get a top 3 class with these guys. What do you think? Love you all, War Damn Eagle.
I want to hear what you think about a haul of all 3 of those guys together.
No.
It's not happening. It's not.
I don't see it happening. It feels unlikely to me. If it happens, I'll be overjoyed. But I think we have a potential to get 2 of the 3, but all 3 of them, I don't think that that's going to happen. So I think Thompson right now is still a possibility. I don't think it's a done deal.
Mm-hmm.
Coleman, I think, is done. Like, there's going to be a lot that's going to have to happen between now and signing day to change his mind to want to go to Auburn, and I just don't know that that's something that Auburn will want to try to get flipping in the other direction. And then Riddick, that's going to be a close one. That's going to be a battle, but I think of the 3, he's the one I'm actually most confident in. But
you think we flip Riddick?
I think it's a potential that we could flip Riddick, yeah. But again, we could go 0 for 3. I don't know. You guys know me and recruiting. I'm never going to. You're not going to hear any crystal ball predictions from Ike Jones about a recruit. That's not going to happen.
So how in your highest likelihood, what you have is the highest likelihood, us getting 1 of those 3 or 2 of those 3? You already said you don't think we're going to get 3 of 3. So
the highest likelihood would be 1 of 3, I think, in my opinion.
Okay.
Now, of those 3, like I said, I'd put the highest. The one who everybody seems to think is coming is Perry Thompson, and so I might change that. Actually, I think Perry Thompson might be the most likely of the 3. But I think Riddick's a possibility. But I think 1 of 3 is probably the most likely scenario that we'll get out of those 3.
Okay. I don't think we're going to get all 3. I'm with you. I think Cam Coleman had every reason to be here, for him to be leaning here by all accounts. And again, so glad we are not in the recruiting game. Don't want that mess. That's a big responsibility, and it's hard to get right all the time. But it's really, I don't think he's coming outside of Jimbo getting fired. If this season is Jimbo's final undoing, then I think it resets everything there. Because that usually resets the hierarchy, the structure of recruiting and all that stuff. And you're kind of hanging on by a thread. Maybe if they've got somebody in the interim or who stays on staff and gets retained, that was part of the last staff, and they can kind of keep stuff going, then maybe. But no, I don't think we're getting Coleman either. I don't think we're getting Coleman. I think both Thompson and Riddick are an equal flip. I'd actually be much more excited about Bolden. We haven't had just all-world safety back there. Sherwood was actually a great safety for us, but
yeah, we've had some really good safeties, but we haven't had anybody who's come in with a lot of hype at safety.
Right. So if I had to choose, I say we get 1. I'm looking at who's doing the recruiting for those guys, right? So Riddick, linebacker. Josh Aldridge he is a linebackers coach, but he's also been a defensive coordinator. And we talked about, again, you do what you're good at, and then you step up to get more responsibility to do the whole picture. And then he was an interim coach when Hugh Freeze left. And then he gets to narrow things and step back into just a linebacker role. To flip Phillips, not flip Phillips, he was favored to Georgia. Phillips was from Tuskegee, the one that we got earlier this summer. To get him says a lot about what you have to be saying and what you have to communicate as a coach and a recruiter to pull a guy from Georgia. Because who's playing better defense than Georgia right now? Just the idea that we have the possibility to get Riddick in addition to stealing Phillips, I think it says something about who Josh Aldridge is as a coach and a recruiter. And that's why I have the highest probability of us flipping him as wide receiver. It's not that Marcus Davis can't be a good recruiter. I think he is, and he was, and that's why we brought him on. But Josh Aldridge is, at this point in his career, a linebacker specialist.
Hmm.
Like he is what to linebackers, what I think Coach Crime Dog is to cornerbacks.
Hmm.
If we've got a shot at you, he's going to be able to say, look at what I did for this guy. Let's talk X's and O's. And the fact that you can even, somebody's going to go to Georgia, talk to Will Muschamp and Kirby Smart, and then come here and possibly pick us over them. I think that's expertise that you can't count out. So I like the idea of Riddick more than I like the idea of Thompson. Not getting Cam Coleman, I guess it puts a little more pep in our step as far as getting that big wide receiver, that high pick wide receiver in this class. And maybe that's what pushes us over the edge to get Thompson. It kind of frees up some time and energy and resources to close that. I say we get 2.
Okay. I'm not mad at that. I'm not mad at that prediction at all. All right, moving on here. Jarquez fan page tweeting at Barner_lover says, at this point, on a scale from 1 to 10, how happy are you with Freeze's progression through the offseason?
1 to 10?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you can say anything's progressed. He came in with his hair on fire recruiting, and his hair's still been on fire recruiting.
Well, just the progression of the program. I'll alter his question. The progression of the program on a scale of 1 to 10 under the Hugh Freeze tenure.
So I think the most impressive thing that Hugh Freeze has done was not closing the signing class that we did in December or February. The most impressive thing Hugh Freeze has done was hit that second portal window and find value. Because we all thought, well, there's not going to be much of second portal. I'm not too worried about that. Maybe we'll get a guy or two. No, Jair Shorter, the best deep threat in the nation by the numbers last year. You got Hollywood Hooks that came in, big body target. You also got Perry Thompson, who is looking like you found your starting quarterback in the second window. And it's not that just a starting quarterback is the end all be all. You don't know if he's going to be good for you until you put him on the field and get him in your scheme. But to find a pick, there were guys that he didn't go after and he didn't offer in the first portal window that he could have, and that will probably have been bigger names and more heralded names as recruiting wins. But he found a lot of value in the second window. So
sure.
I think that says more about him and his recruiting prowess to me, his evaluation to me, than can be said about just closing signing day. Signing day, by that time, the soup is already made. Like you're just trying to stay positive and compete with these last minute things that are changing with these guys. But those decisions have been cooking for months when it comes to December and February signing day. That second portal window, all that's kind of brand new.
Right.
Like I didn't know that you were going to be available. So I have to evaluate you. I have to make myself attractive in a very quick amount of time. And I have to close that deal. He was able to do that. I say 8 out of 10. We've been losing a couple of recruiting battles here. And if we had won a few more of these, I would say 10 out of 10. But right now, I say 8 out of 10 for what he's been able to do. And mostly recruiting because we don't have much else to go on right now.
Yeah, I think it's hard to go 10 on this. To your point, there have been some guys who we thought we were going to secure that are already committed elsewhere. Those battles are yet to be done, but I can't give you credit for what I think you might do in the future as far as flipping guys. So I'd have to go 8 as well, probably 8.5, somewhere in that range. But I think that they've done a great job so far. And to your point, the most impressive thing is that second portal period window where, I was very adamant in saying, you're not really going to get a lot of guys during that time. And you absolutely did. Yeah. So a lot of props to this staff and Coach Hugh Freeze for putting the staff together to get that stuff moving in the right direction with that.
Yep.
All right. Next, we've got Lynn Lanier tweeting at Coach Lanier 100. Did Auburn not get better or another year developed at every position group on both sides of the ball? Plus, depth is better than last season. Not sure what these magazine predictions are about. 7-win minimum season with a bowl opportunity. So did Auburn get better or not this offseason, in your opinion, B. Will?
I do think we got better. We got better at 2 key positions, wide receiver, linebacker. Those had ailed us the last season. Linebacker had only ailed us for 1 season. We missed Zacoby McClain. Wide receiver, mostly because of time to get in a rhythm with the quarterback. The passing game was poor. Now, I don't think we necessarily – I don't call it an improvement to go from assuming what would have been a healthy Robbie Ashford this year to Peyton Thorne. I think it's a different quarterback. But the depth of the room has been improved drastically because if you're going to say, hey, I would like to see a healthy Robbie Ashford play for us, I think he would be great. Okay, cool. He's still here. Now we got another guy. Depth has been improved at that position. That's incredibly important. But we have immense depth at wide receiver now. We've got everybody that we were excited about last year that didn't get the chance to get on the field. They're still here. And
Right.
then we added a bunch of dudes who actually might be dudes. So that's an incredibly important position. On top of that, the linebacker, it got better. We upgraded talent across the board. Do we have an exact mix of who's going to start and who's going to be that guy yet? I don't think so, but we upgraded tremendously. I'm still worried about defensive line. We lost 2 outstanding players to the draft, 2 guys who may have been able to go to the draft before this. They could have gone last year. They probably wouldn't get drafted that high, but we lost NFL talent on the defensive line. I can't say for sure that I've seen talent as good as them. If you would, Kobe Wooden was the best defensive inside lineman we had, and Derek Hall was the best outside lineman we had. Eka Leota would have been in that conversation as well. All 3 of those guys gone. So, do we have proven talent there? We've got some bodies to fill in. Do we have proven talent? I think we're actually really young at defensive line. We're putting a lot on Marcus Harris and Justin Rogers.
And Jason Jones. I mean, so listen, you've got Jason Jones, Justin Rogers, Marcus Harris, Mosiah Nasili Kite, and Lawrence Jackson. All of 5 guys that can be in the rotation that have played significant steps in their collegiate career so far. You've got young guys guys who've been at school for a while, but really haven't gotten a lot of opportunity in Zacavius Walker. You've got a guy like Aniche Sledge that's still there, right? So we've got a good amount of guys up there. It's just about whether or not we can find the right 3 guys to play significant minutes and rotating the other guys through. So yeah, I think we definitely got better this offseason. We've already talked about what our win-loss over-under predictions are going to be. I think that we beat the Vegas total. That was 6.5 at one point in time. Don't know where the line sits right now. So I think it's a little silly to think otherwise right now. I just don't know that everybody else got that much better. And if we improved and we weren't that much worse, then, I think we'll get to a good place by the end of this season to be able to get to 7 wins.
Yeah, I agree. 7 should be definitely doable.
All right. I'm going to combine a couple of them because they're in the same kind of area. Marion Thomas tweeting at BobcatN71. And then Jarquez fan page comes back at Barner_Lever. Both of them have a similar type of question asking who's going to be the big team. And I think there was a third person who actually asked what of the big 3 do you think Auburn will beat this year? And Michael Thompson comes in, MJ0351 Thompson says, between LSU, UGA, and Bama, which of those teams does Auburn have the best chance to upset? So all 3 of those questions are kind of in that. What's going to be the big statement win type of thing this year? Will, of the big 3 that are on the schedule, who is the one most likely for Auburn to get the upset against?
It's going to be Bama. I think Bama, because it's at home. That's basically it. It's at home. Georgia has found a very high floor under Kirby Smart here recently. I do think they have a chance to falter here because they haven't been to have what they have in Stetson Bennett. Partially, I don't want to call that luck because Kirby Smart intentionally kept that man around and kept bringing him back. That's not luck. That guy had been all through your program, but every time there was an opportunity to put him in the game, you put him in the game, and he turned into a really good quarterback for Georgia. That is some maturity and experience that they do not have. And there were a couple of games last year that they could have lost with a less experienced quarterback, namely the game at Missouri, also the Ohio State game. They needed every bit of experience that he brought in order to get over the hump. I think they're not going to be unstoppable because they lost too much experience at quarterback. Now, floor wise though, Kirby has his team playing at a certain level that I think maybe has only been mirrored by what Bama was when Kirby was there. And I think that they're less likely to drop the ball metaphorically and literally than Bama is. I haven't seen that just fire and desire from Alabama in a while. Like, they're more talented than everybody, but the standard that Kirby has his guys playing to, and I still remember Will Muschamp as the DC over there, man. Like, you're not intensity, keeping the fire up, keeping these guys going, man. Kevin Steele and whoever the OC was at Alabama that came from Notre Dame, and versus these guys over here, I think Georgia's going to be a more formidable team. I expect Bama to be the most gettable end of the season. Everything's on the line. That's our rivalry game. That's where we make our hay. LSU at LSU. I think LSU is too good at home for us with that talent disparity that we have. So I don't think we beat LSU. I don't think we beat Georgia. I think they've been playing on another level. We beat Bama because I have been firm. They are starting to take a step back.
Yeah, I think of the three, Bama is the most likely. To your point, it's at home. I do think that, they'll have time to have gotten it together, but I do think that Auburn has always going to have a shot at home in that rivalry game against Alabama. But this year in particular, I think the unknown nature of where Bama is in some of their spaces, going to have a ton of talent. They will have, again, time to have put it together by the end of the season. Just don't know they will be in a place specifically from the quarterback position where they're going to have enough. So we'll see. But yeah, I think of the three, I will put Bama as the most likely win of the big three that we have on our schedule. Yep. Got a lot to still peel through here on Twitter, but we want to hear you guys' comments there in the comment section. Make sure you guys are doing a favor and sharing the video on social media. Make sure you add us so we know that you did that. Like the video while you're in here. Go ahead and give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Take a little quick pause, not like a commercial or whatever, but just to tell you again, rogueshop.com is the sponsor of this morning's morning drop. So make sure that you all head over to rogueshop.com. The 20% thing is over, but you can still get something off using code RAPPORT. So head on over there. America's #1 online dispensary. That is rogueshop.com. And they got some great stuff going for you. We're going to keep rolling through these ones over here on Twitter. And then we are going to jump over to the comment section. We've already talked about Perry Thompson and DeMarcus Riddick. Ethan Lowry asked who is the most likely to flip of those two. I think we've gotten that out of the way. Mm-hmm. Jarquez fan page with another one says, how long do y'all think it will take for Freeze to compete for a natty? How many years before Auburn is competing for a natty? Well, I guess we should qualify that question in what we consider competing for a natty, right? We'll be in the era of the 12-team playoff by next year. Mm-hmm. Auburn could definitely make a 12-team playoff, I think, in the first season. Definitely a potential there. But is that competing for a natty in your mind? Do they need to have won a couple of games in that playoff to be considered competing for a natty? Let's qualify the question before we answer the question. B. Will, what do you think about that?
To be clear, I'm going to be very fair in how I assess our definition of competing for a natty. What does that mean for Auburn? It's going to be the same thing that I think it means for a Lincoln Riley, which is if you get to the playoff and you don't win anything, you have not won anything. Okay. In that case, can we get to a 12-team playoff? Yes. Is that as impressive as getting to the 14 playoff? No. However, beating a team in the 12-team playoff, I think, is competing for a championship. Because you didn't just get chosen to be in the top 8 after that. If you won your game, your opening round game, you actually earned your way into that game. That means you probably beat somebody that you had not beat, that everybody else thought was a good team or a better team, depending on where you got seated. And I think competing with one of the top teams of the country, winning the game, being in the postseason and having a chance to continue postseason play, that is impressive and it's important. So along those lines, you've got to get in the playoff and you've got to win one, not just get seeded in a playoff. Because again, Oklahoma did that a handful of times. Washington did it one year. Michigan State did it one year. Cincinnati did it one year. And they did nothing. They did not win those games. So no, just making it by itself. No, getting in and winning one. Yes. And I think that can happen 2025. 2025. Okay. We win a playoff game by 2025.
So year 3 under Hugh Freeze, you think that we get into the playoff and win one? I think that's fair. That's probably where I would put it as well. I think we could make the playoff next year. I think we can get in and win a playoff game by year 2025. Matter of fact, by that year, I do think that we'll have the talent if we're trending in the same direction we are from a recruiting standpoint to win multiple games in a playoff scenario. So I would put 2025 as the year that I think we'll be competing for natty. If they beat that, then they are definitely ahead of schedule in my book. And Coach Hugh Freeze will be getting a contract extension by the year 2025. So All right, let's keep it pushing on here. We still got quite a few to get to. I'm going to jump over here to this super chat from Amani Smoot, just because I appreciate it. And it's kind of something that we've already talked about, but I wanted to get him in here. Amani says, Auburn will beat Georgia, Alabama, and LSU this season. Won't be no upset in my eyes. Forget them and War Eagle. Amani, always with the pump of sunshine.
Thank you, Amani. I can't go there with you. I'm glad you're there. So you can be there for all of us, pulling us along. You get the first I told you so if all that happens. But
yeah, not mad at that at all. Listen, Monty wants us to go undefeated every season and predicts it every year. So, and I'm never mad at that prediction because listen, we're an Auburn fan channel. We want to see it happen.
For sure.
Let's make it happen. All right. What else we got out here? Marion Thomas tweeting at Bobcats in 71 says, do you think On to Victory can compete with the likes of Bama, Georgia, and Texas A&M when it comes to recruiting? Auburn will have to get some of these 5 stars or we will never get out of this hole. Thoughts, be Will?
We can get out of the hole without 5 stars.
For sure.
I've always been of that mindset. I mean, we can talk about big player, landing them, getting them. They don't all end up having 5-star impact. That's number one. So Hugh Freeze needs to identify the right talent and win that talent and bring it in first. It doesn't necessarily have to be 5 stars. And that's something you're going to hear me say a lot. And I think Ike has echoed that as well. However, getting the guys, even if they are 5 stars, in and having them be productive and bought in is probably the most important thing. They have to get here. If it's 3s or 4s or high 4s or 5s, getting them in, getting them productive, and having what he does best, which is offense. Hugh Freeze is an offensive coach. Having that look like it makes sense. Having the talent come here, and after you recruit them and you tell them they're going to show out, you actually put together an offense that has them looking great. That is going to continue your great recruiting. That's going to create that pipeline of, no, I know they're going to put up numbers. Kind of like what you could assume about a Gus Malzahn running back. Like, we need to do that, but for the entire offense. And I think that that's something he can do as long as he's got to make it look good. Year one. If year one, he can make it look good with a bunch of, we got some okay guys in here, then yeah, then we're going to boom. And then we can start beating these other teams for their top prospects. We have a chance to flip a commit from Georgia, which again, defensively, they have had no slack. They're landing guys in the league at a crazy rate. For you to be able to steal a recruit from them, whether it's by flipping or by you're in a direct battle with them, that's that momentum. But again, that's the experience and the expertise of a Josh Aldridge. Where we don't have that experience and expertise at the coaching position, which is wide receiver for Marcus Davis, because he's still a young guy, the offense that you show can do what the experience can't do. Put the offense on the field, have it looking phenomenal. It gets so much easier to get that next guy in. Right now, we don't have it. I think once he does that, all of the recruits that we are having to fight so hard for, I don't think it's quite as difficult a fight if you show that you can come here and be a star at Auburn. So he's got one season to do it. I hope he does it because I think we start moving really fast after that.
Yeah, and to the point of On to Victory, right? Like a lot of that just has to do with how many Auburn fans are actually contributing to On to Victory on a regular basis, right? Their budget's got to come from people who are giving them contributions. So if you're not signed up, go sign up. Figure out a way that we can get contributions in. For the first time in history, fans have a way to actually impact what that budget is for those players. Go help it out, right? So if you're not signed up, make that happen, number one. Number two, this is something that people don't take into account, don't realize. Auburn is a smaller school than the vast majority of these schools that we're competing against. So we have a smaller base of people to pick from. Even if we have a Yellowwood brand that's attached to us and Tim Cook's that's attached to us or whatever, we don't have as many of those potentially as some of these schools because they just have a bigger number of people that can come in and contribute. So it's going to be hard in the era where you can get contributions, from people, for us to catch up financially. So to your point, B. Will, I don't think that you need to worry about whether or not you can catch up financially. You have to figure out what are the other things that you can do to close the gap. right?
Yes.
So yes, you're going to need to land a couple of 5 stars out there, but if you're putting that all on the backs of On to Victory to make that happen, even in
Right.
the era of NIL, then I think that you're already starting behind the 8 ball in a losing battle, in a battle
Yeah.
that you can't win, right?
Right.
Like you literally can't expect for 1 or 2 big donors to compete with 5 or 6 big donors from other schools on a consistent basis without bankrupting these people and thinking they just got unlimited checks to write.
Right.
Like
Right.
that's
Right.
just not how that works. So we're going to need to figure out other ways to do that. And so proof of concept on the field is going to be one of those things.
Mhm.
And being able to develop well for 3 and 4 star guys is going to be the other thing that's going to really close that gap for you. So you're going
Yep.
to be able to land a couple of 5 stars for sure, but it's not just going to be on the backs of your NIL program.
Exactly. Exactly.
All right, let's get to, we still have a few more here, and then we got to get to the ones here in the chat. We do see your questions here in the chat, so we'll try to get to those. I feel like I just skipped over somebody. Here we go. Frederick Fornes tweeting at WMPGA says, how important will time of possession play in the chances of winning the hard games? And what's the balance between offense being on the field and defense on the field? What does the balance need to be in order to achieve success under Freeze?
Well, it depends on how good our defense is,
Mhm.
honestly. So if our offense is good enough to possess the ball, if we can run the ball, if not at will, then when we need to keep the defense fresh and rested, then that will be phenomenal. Because honestly, that's how we made it so far in 2013. Our defense was not great, but our defense didn't have to be out on the field all day because the offense could possess the ball. So here, we don't know how good that defense is. We know we had some concerns about the run game from A-Day, but we turned over so much talent, even from A-Day. Like we've got an additional linebacker or two. We've got, I think we actually landed an additional the defensive lineman. We don't know what those are going to look like. I think the secondary is going to be outstanding. I'm not worried about the secondary. The defensive line, I'm worried about because I don't know who it's going to be. The linebackers, I know who, but I don't know what the pecking order is going to be. We have to figure that out. So if we can possess the ball, great. Then we can protect a defense that, again, we have some talent, but are they going to be a unit? Are they going to be operating cohesively as a unit? Are they going to be a lockdown defense? That will be phenomenal. I would love to see it here. I'm not sure if we have the recipe for that, though, this year. Not this year, not yet. So I think time of possession is going to afford us 2 luxuries. Number one is to rest that defense so they don't have to be exposed in case they aren't great. But number two, it's going to be able to control the clock and get points exactly when you need them. Like let's say we can't count on our defense. Every time the other team gets the ball, they score on us because they've got something cooking and exploit a matchup or whatever. All right, great. Well, not only can I run the clock out, but I'm going to definitely control this clock and possess the ball for the last entire 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. You don't even get another shot. I'm going to get it in close. McPherson's going to kick me a 34-yard to win it, and end of story. That's kind of the best case of an offensive line in a run game that can control the ball. So yes, not only the time and saving your defense, but saving your defense, but making sure that you get the last bite of the apple in some of these games where the talent is going to be a little bit of a disparity between what they have and what we have. That's going to be very key if we can pull it off.
Yeah, I don't know that this coaching staff is, and I'd have to go back and look at the numbers as to how focused they are on time of possession and ball control offense. I think they just want to score. I think they want to score early and often and run that score up. So if that's the case, then it's not going to be as important. I think the importance of possessing the ball, to be Will's point, is going to be end of game scenarios where we need to choke the clock out. And that's going to be largely dependent on the offensive line. But how important will it be this season? I don't think that we need to win time of possession with the way this offensive staff wants to be able to score the ball proficiently. Will we be able to do that? Is going to be a different question.
Yeah.
So I think we'll be able to answer that game probably after we get done with Texas A&M, where we are with our ability to just, are we going to be a prolific scoring offense? Because Texas A&M will be a formidable defense that we'll be able to go up against early in the season. We'll still have time to work through kinks later in the back end of the season. So if we're scoring big points against a good defensive team early on the road, then I think that we have a good offensive strategy here and a good way to go out there and get points that can be a kind of a postmark for the remainder of the season. If we're not at that point in time, then we'll probably need to lean into time of possession and really try to get that run game to solidify choking the clock out. And
Yeah.
hopefully our defense is in a good place that will be a thing that matters. To your point, if your defense is giving a bunch of points and you ran time of possession, doesn't matter. You still lose the game.
Right.
So
every time y'all out there, you getting scored on, no matter how fresh you are. It don't matter.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Corey Weber tweeting from CWeb_44 says, does Fairweather break the single season TD reception record for a tight end? I don't know what the single season touchdown record is for Auburn for a tight end, but I'm going to say yes, just because I don't think there's a lot of them out there and I think that he has a chance to do it. I don't think that that's a high number for tight ends with touchdown reception. So I'm going to say yes, just off the strength of that. Be Will, thoughts?
Yeah, I don't think we have a very prolific tight end scoring season in our history books. I'm sure we've got some with maybe 5 or so, right, I would guess, but I can't imagine that it's more than that. Will Fairweather get 5 touchdowns? I think it is what probably puts him in the neighborhood of breaking the record. That's tough. Again, I think we're gonna spread it around so much. There's a chance he could just be a mismatch nightmare, but not necessarily in touchdowns. He could be an incredible red zone threat, but when you've got a bunch of guys 6'2" and up, all of them are incredible red zone threats. So
Corey says Lutz holds the record with 11 touchdowns. I don't know.
He had 11?
I don't know about 11, fam.
Oh wow! Hey, misspoke. My apologies to the Lutz family and the legacy of Philip Lutzenkirchen. No, I don't think Fairweather's breaking 11.
Yeah,
no way.
Bro.
I don't think he's getting double digits.
One of this offense, I don't know about 11 plus, fam.
Yeah, man, that's a lot. I think, again, if we're the same reason I'm saying that nobody's going to get to 900 yards receiving, too many dudes, man. The assumption that the offensive line could just be okay. Jarquez Hunter was working great behind a mediocre offensive line. And we're talking about pre-Harsin offensive line, before Harsin got fired. When the offensive line was bad, Jarquez was able to still make something out of nothing multiple times. Again, we talked about how he was the difference maker. LSU 2021 getting us down the field. Penn State 2021 getting us down the field. When Jarquez gets the ball, he's going to do something special. We could have legitimate red zone threats, not just with Fairweather as a size matchup, but Camden Brown and Hollywood Hooks. And Shorter's more of a deep threat, so maybe he's not on the field in those situations. But Jarquez as well. We got too many dudes who can get the ball in addition to Fairweather and do something with it. I don't think anybody gets to 10 touchdowns. Too many dudes. I think we spread it around too much.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Yeah, I have to retract everything I said about high touch. 11 feels like a lot for one guy in year one of this offense. If he does that, man, then they have really figured out something. And listen, Coach Hugh Freeze does a really great job with the tight end position. I just don't know that I see 11, bro.
Yeah,
I don't know. I'm gonna say no on that one. I'm gonna say no on that one. Haley comes in and tweeting at Haley_T2010 and says, where do we expect Coach Hugh Freeze's first recruiting class to land in the rankings?
I think somewhere between 8 and 10. I think 8 and 10. The 5-star is really, they kind of boost you when it comes to rankings. Like you could jump like 6-7 spots if you could one kind of like in the consensus high 4 on one service, but 5 on the other 2 or 3 services. Like that's all it takes. You get a couple of these. Like again, Perry Thompson, he's a 5, but he's a 5 in most. I think he's a 4 in 1 or 2. That takes us up 6-7 spots. You get a Riddick as well, 6-7 spots. You get a Bolden, 6-7 spots. Like it's really hard to kind of keep you out of the top 10 if you sign 2 5-star guys. It's really tough. It's really tough to say that we're definitely going to get them, because that means we have to land Bolden over Georgia and that we have to flip Thompson. And again, these are up in the air things. I think he gets between 8 and 10, though. I think between 8 and 10 for sure in the first class.
I mean, inside the top 15 for sure. You land 1 or 2 of those 5 stars inside the top 10 for sure. So I think, top 10 is doable year one under Coach Hugh Freeze, where we are right now. I'm going to say probably around 11 or 12, though, is where I think we're going to land. Okay. So Lucas Jewell comes in and says, he had 7, not 11.
Oh, okay.
7 seems more feasible.
Yeah.
Somebody
I was
needs to
saying
look that
11
up
is
for sure, because
crazy.
I said we're not looking at the record book. Somebody needs to look that up and tell us for sure who has the most touchdowns for a tight end, and we can answer that question more of definitively. So can he get to 8 touchdowns? Yeah, I think that's possible.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
But 12 felt like a lot. I don't know if I can get there. All right, so that's it for Twitter. Let's jump over here and try to get these real rapid style, and so we can get out of here this morning. From the chat here, we will start with B Will's forehead, who says, not really a question, but I heard someone on the radio say that the Egg Bowl was the best rivalry in the SEC, and I think that we need to talk about that. We can have a separate conversation about how stupid that question is, or that statement is, but yeah, we'll move on from that because that's dumb. Jeremy Locke says, does Jarquez Hunter get over 800 yards rushing, or is it going to be a split in the running back room?
I think he should. I think that comes down to touches. Are they going to be preferring to throw it or run it? Depending on, we kind of have to find our identity once they know what our offensive line can and can't do. They should be able to get 800 yards out of Jarquez. Absolutely. I think it comes down to what Hugh Freeze decides to do as far as play calling, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's possible for him to do it, even with them splitting it around the room. We talked about this a little bit last night on Watch the Film when we were looking at Damari Alston, that I think that it's possible for someone to touch 900 plus and still have 500-600 from one or two other people for a 2,000-yard season on the ground. Definitely possible. Walker Show jumps in. You look at Big Cat Weekend and don't see so far any offensive linemen on the list. Are y'all concerned?
You know, we got such a big haul on offensive linemen the last 6 months. I kind of haven't been thinking about offensive line recruits. I have no idea who we are in it for. I know we lost out on House. All right, so that was a loss. It's really hard to say. I think everybody's attention has been focused so much on 5-star Coleman, 5-star Perry Thompson, 5-star Bolden, that we're kind of that's got our biggest attention right now, because all of these guys have been slated to announce here soon. My guess is that the offensive linemen will come later once they actually get to see what offenses are doing for the season. I think that's when that happens. So over the course of the season, early signing day, I think that's when we get those big ones. I'm not concerned that they're not on the Big Cat list. We still got a whole season to play. And so do the kids. They got to play their senior seasons as well. So I'm not concerned yet.
No, I'm not concerned that they're not on the Big Cat list. I mean, I think that it's something that the coaching staff is keenly aware of. I trust this staff in their ability to evaluate positions of need for the team. And so if we're going to need to get some more O-linemen, I think they're going to go get more O-linemen. I'm not worried about that right now.
Yeah.
Lucas Jewell jumps in and says, what do you all think about Bruce? A basketball question, using 5-out offense this season.
Okay. Explain 5-out offense to me, because I don't know what that means.
5-out offense. That's the same offense that Miami ran, by the way, against us that year that we lost them in the tournament. It essentially means that you don't have anybody down in the low post. You're pulling everybody out offensively, and you're running a lot of motion offense out top, whether it's dribble handoffs and all that sort of thing to create downhill slashing cuts. And so you're trying to pull essentially the defense out of the paint and give yourself more ability to cut and get downhill and drive against guys. Definitely possible for us to do something like that. I don't think it is something. I don't think that Bruce Pearl is going to switch his offense in that way. We do already run a primarily motion offense. I think he's going to stick with what he's always been doing, which is running flex and high ball screen stuff for the most part. Do I think that there's some opportunities to do that sort of thing? Yes, but the offense that you'd have to, or excuse me, the guys that you'd have to employ out there wouldn't be something that I think that we're going to run often, which would likely mean that you end up putting Jay Will at the 5 in that scenario, because you're not going to run 5 out with either Broom or Cardwell on the floor.
Yeah.
So you'd have to put Jay Will at the 5 in that scenario for it to really make sense, unless Broom somehow has gotten better at handling the ball out top. And then, you have to have somebody like Chad Baker-Mazara at the 4,
Chaney Johnson at the 3.
Yeah, you could, or actually you put Chaney at the 4. You could put Baker-Mazara at the 3 or Simo at the 3, and then take your pick of guards that you could put in there. It's possible. Chaney Johnson's played some post, and so he's big enough, I think, to be out there and get rebounds, because that's going to be the biggest concern that you'll have with that sort of lineup is rebounding and defense.
Right.
But could we play that some this season? Possibly. We do have the personnel to do it. I just don't think it's going to be a high level of that this year, just because of that's not Bruce's thing.
Right. And Lucas followed up here and said that There was an interview where Bruce said he's switching it up and going to do some of that because
Okay.
Broom is doing better. And see, we
Okay.
talked about this. Broom comes back. He needs to improve certain skills to show that he's ready for the NBA. That's definitely one of the skills. He needs to be able to play from outside. So that makes sense. He wants to put his star player on display, say, hey, you need to show this. You come back and we'll make sure that you show this. So I like that from Bruce. And I like that idea a lot.
Okay. Well, if he said he's going to do it, then he's going to do it. I ain't going to got a reason to think he's going to lie about it. So looking forward to seeing that change up in what he's doing offensively, because that's going to be different than what he's done for the majority of his career. So definitely going to be something new for me to take a look at on some film, baby. So get an opportunity to see some of that. James Barnett says, fellas, do we have the talent to beat the big three? We've already talked about this, especially since we have two of them at Jordan Hare.
Talent, sure. To beat them at home.
Yeah.
In a very emotional game. That's why I think Bama, because we've been able to play above our head to beat a Bama team at the end of the season at home multiple times. So I think that's why that's the most likely. Not two. I just not two out of three. I don't see it. I would love to be wrong.
Yeah, I think it's hard for us to get a win in LSU. And beating Georgia this year seems like an uphill battle. I do think that we have a chance to beat Georgia. I just don't know that it's going to happen this year. So we'll see. Yeah. Steve Bradley jumps in and says, has our strength and conditioning, Mike G needs to be here for this question. Has our strength and conditioning coach made an impression on our players? Haven't heard that much is why I asked. We have not heard a lot of strength and conditioning conversations happening around this staff. They're not focusing on it like the last staff was, where they're showing a bunch of guys lifting and the coaches lifting and like all that kind of thing. So I don't know, honestly. We will have an opportunity to talk to some players coming up here soon. So maybe we'll talk about what the strength and conditioning program is like with them. But your thoughts on strength and conditioning?
Yeah, I have no idea if it's something that the players see a difference and they love it, or see a difference and it's not as intense or not as much of a focus. I don't think it matters incredibly, because if you get out in that field and get pushed around, then you can't win football games. So I expect them to have guys up to par and ready to go for the season.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll get a chance to get you guys some more concrete answers on that. We are going to get out of here. We appreciate all the questions. I know we didn't get to everybody, but we will try to do this again coming up soon. We always appreciate you guys dropping in with us. We're going to get out of here. Once again, make sure that you head over to rogueshop.com, use code RAPPORT. That gets you a little something off your purchase. Lets them know the War Report sent you. America's #1 online dispensary is Rogue Shop. They've got something for everything that ails you, whether it's sleep, stress, pain. They've got something over there that can make sure that you get a little relief for that. We'll be back at you guys again this coming Sunday with the weekend tailgate. Make sure that you lock in with everything that we've got going on out there. If you're a member and you haven't watched the film, I did 2 of them yesterday on Damari Alston. You got a chance to check out both of them. Check us out on podcasts. Like the video before you get out of here. Subscribe to the channel. Share the video with somebody else. We're out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle, peace.
Peace.